you ever visited Edinburgh? Beautiful city, no matter what time of year you go. The castle that sits at the centre of the city is awe-inspiring, looking down on the surrounding area from the mount. The peaks and valleys of the land have resulted in a city that flows with the landscape. Streets that surround can be steep, with numerous sprawling alleyways even steeper. It is here that we find Flesh Market Close. It could be mistaken for any other darkened causeway in the city. It sits among the shops and tourist traps, relatively non-threatening, and can be used as a shortcut to get down to the station if you're in a hurry. The name has been justified through some who point out that flesh markets were a local term for butchers, and through others who suggest it a hangout of women of the first vocation. These are incorrect. There is a market on the close, but flesh is not the product. It's the currency. Market hours are dusk until dawn, and the entrance fee is one mouthful of your own blood. Prepare a glass and progress down the alleyway. As you get halfway down, swig from the glass and spit it against the wall. The blood will bubble and spread across the wall, coagulating into a hardened scab. This will then start to flake and scatter. A rather anticlimactic door will be revealed beneath. Stepping through is disorienting, as logic will tell you that you're stepping into a building. The space you're stepping into has no walls, with darkness surrounding the edge. It's at the penumbra that a number of stalls are set up, run by individuals who look like market traders from across the globe, from Arabian merchants to Cockney grocers to New York street con men. All their clothes are splattered with blood and offal. These figures will entice you to come speak with them and will gesture to numerous signs around their stalls regarding sales they're currently having. Upon approaching one of the stalls, they will start to pressure you to make a deal with them. You are certainly welcome to do so. The products that are available are certainly worth consideration. Starting at the cheap end of the spectrum, you may wish to offer one breath. A lungful will net you the knowledge of the weather for the next day. In itself, a rather pointless purchase in the age of smartphones and the Met Office, but centuries ago invaluable. Taking this offer will result in the seller reaching out with his hand flattened, then quickly grasping it into a fist. The air will literally be stolen from your lungs and cause a few moments of gasping as you catch your breath. Are you attached to your fingers? How attached? I mean, do you reckon you could do without your little finger? This sale will provide you instant forgiveness from any one person you desire for any wrongs you may have encroached against them. Agreeing to this one will cause the trader to grin and shout, "One you Basumi special, coming right up." They will lunge forward and grab your wrist, pinning it to the table. Don't resist, because no one likes a tough sell. A flash of steel, and you'll be minus one digit. Just remember, you can only pay twice. Now, make no mistake, it will hurt. There will probably be a lot of blood, and if you don't take care of the wound, it may even get infected. As the price goes up, you may want to consider taking precautions regarding what you trade. Tourniquets and sutures would certainly not go amiss. Now, some of the trades will seem familiar and may hark back to stories and legends that have existed for millennia. This is the influence the market has on our own culture, leeching in over the centuries. A pound of flesh will make it impossible for the next person you trade with to renege on the deal, especially useful if you don't trust the company you keep. It has no use within the market, as all of the traders are trustworthy and will honour a purchase to the letter and the spirit. Best to leave this transaction until last. How about one of your eyes? Depth perception is overrated anyway. Offering up one of them will allow you to converse with our avian friends. You'll be able to call down the birds from the trees, and they'll be able to answer any questions you may have. It is advisable that you avoid ravens. They have their own agenda, and it's not in your best interests. The salesman will grab you around the throat and slowly prise his finger into the socket. A snap of the wrist, and your visual organ will rest in their palm. Another snap, and it will disappear. It is at this point that you may want to consider stronger measures to ensure your survival of payment. In this strange little world of ours, the market is hardly the strangest. Artifacts and incantations exist that can allow the body to continue to function long past the point at which mortal coils would be shuffled from. One or two can be picked up here, but few are willing to live without their sexual organs. It seems eternity is that little bit colder without the ability to get your rocks off. I'm not going to go into details as to how they're taken. Suffice to say, it is unpleasant and messy. At this point, the prices become a little more vital. What would you take for your stomach? In this deal, it would merit you the ability to understand the desires of anyone you talk to. Whilst you converse with them, your mind will be filled with the images of that which they covet the most. This would provide a significant advantage to any budding salesman, and the deal has been taken up by several of the stallholders themselves. Some may argue that such a gift would be more poetically suited to the heart. That vascular muscle, however, is a part of an altogether different deal. By bartering with your heart, you can guarantee the happiness of any given individual for the rest of their life, however long that may be. The removal of these types of organs can be significantly painful, but the dealers will allow you a moment to prepare yourself before they will produce a short, keen blade. One practice swipe later, and they'll be digging into your tissue. They have unerring accuracy and a level of cleanliness that rivals any surgeon. Now, it is acknowledged in some places that once a deal has been sealed, a buyer may have second thoughts and may want to back out. This is not one of those places. Most of the contract is left unspoken, but you are expected to have done your research. The buyout clauses are a killer. While most of the body can be put on the table, there are limitations. The fact of the matter is that the brain is the seat of sentience and cannot be fully placed in. I say fully. There was one individual who offered to lobotomize the part of the brain that holds memory as a part of the deal. The problem is, he cannot remember what it is he received in return. I hear he suffered night terrors for the rest of his days. Now, at this point, I offer a warning. Up until now, I have detailed the price list for your own body parts. Whatever you do not attempt to purchase anything in the market with organs of another. Every figure in the market will stop and stare at you, and the one you attempted to defraud will scream. That is not yours to trade. Whatever it is you have tried to barter with, that body part will be taken from you as punishment. A very literal eye for an eye. Despite whatever theological perspectives you may hold, offering your own soul will elicit the same result. There have been many theories postulated for this response, but the honest answer is we just don't know. The market has been trading in blood and bone for as long as civilization has existed. Though the entrance has moved from city to city, many have visited and shook hands with the butchers, though not quite as many got those hands back. A smart man would wonder how it is these individuals are capable of honoring the deals they broker. A smarter man would ask himself why his body parts are of such high value in this economy. Just understand that it is supply and demand. As long as there are fools willing to supply, you shouldn't need to concern yourself with who is doing the demanding. I've been lying down for hours now. It's 5:35 AM and there's not much I can do. You know what the worst part about my situation is? I'm in the same room with my parents. They keep looking at me, and I can't help but look back and try not to cry or scream. Their eyes are focused on me, and their mouths are wide open. There's the strong scent of blood, and I feel so paralyzed with fear. Here's the thing. The second I make any hint that I'm not asleep anymore, I am completely fucked. I will die, and there's nobody around to save me. I've been trying to think of a way out, but the only idea I have is to rush for the door and run outside the front door and scream for help, hoping any neighbours will hear me. It's risky, but if I stay here, I'll surely die. He's waiting for me to wake up and see his masterpiece. You're probably wondering what's going on. I do get ahead of myself sometimes. About 3 hours ago, I heard screaming from the other side of the house. I got up and went to check on the noise, before realising I'd used the bathroom. Instead of doing the smart thing and investigating, I used the bathroom first. I could have gotten myself killed right then and there from my stupid actions. But I actually did my business and took a peek outside the bathroom. There was blood on the carpet. I got very worried and ran back to my room, hiding under my sheets like the pussy I was. I tried to convince myself to go back to sleep, that it was just some really vivid dream or something. But I heard my bedroom door open. Like the terrified child I was, I peeked from under my blankets to see what was going on. I could see something dragging my dead parents into the room. It wasn't human, I can tell you that. It was hairless, with no eyes and no clothing. It walked like a caveman, with its back slouched as it dragged my parents. But this thing was much smarter than any caveman. It was aware of what it was doing. It propped my dad up on the edge of my bed and made him face me. It then sat my mother down in a chair and positioned her towards me as well. It then started rubbing its hands upon the wall, staining them with blood, and then drew a circle with a devil's pentagram in it. This thing had made what it would probably call a masterpiece. To finish it off, it scribbled a message onto the wall that I couldn't read in the darkness. It then positioned itself under my bed, waiting to strike. The scariest thing now is that my eyes have adjusted to the darkness since then, and I can read the message on the wall. I don't want to look at it, because it's terrifying to think about. But I feel like I need to see, before I'm killed. I peek at the creature's masterpiece. I know you're awake. I couldn't take the calls anymore. I just couldn't take knowing. There was nothing I could do to stop them from coming through. I had to put an end to it. It all started this summer, when I was playing with my eldest daughter, Chrissy. My kid absolutely loved toy cars, so I gave her my Matchbox collection, which I'd kept in the attic since my childhood. She was driving some farm animals around on the hood of my most prized possession, a classic fire truck with all its original parts and an unblemished paint job, when she suddenly stopped our caravan halfway to Mount Marshmallow Snowflakes, also known as the white leather couch in the corner. "Daddy," she said, her voice sweet and innocent. "Yes, honey," I replied. "Daddy, don't answer the phone," she told me. Having not heard my phone ringing, I wasn't sure what she meant by this. She'd probably seen the screen on my smartphone lighting up from an incoming call. I had a tendency to forget to unmute the thing after meetings at the office. I guessed that Chrissy didn't want our playtime to end, so I assured her Daddy wasn't going anywhere and left the phone alone. She smiled and we continued our game. Later, I checked my call history, but discovered that there hadn't been any incoming calls. I didn't really give it much thought, to be honest. A few weeks later, the same thing happened while we were playing doctor and giving Mr. Fuzzy Wuzzy his annual checkup. Chrissy looked up towards the kitchen and dropped her stuffed bear. "Daddy, don't answer the phone," whispered Chrissy in a frightened tone. This time, I chose not to heed her warning. I got up and checked my smartphone right away. No incoming calls. Following Chrissy's gaze, I realised that she was actually looking at the old telephone on the kitchen wall. We had disconnected the landline and unplugged it years ago. My wife had been asking me to take it down the day I'd cancelled our residential phone service. We'd both gotten cell phones and wanted to put the money towards something more useful. The bulky white device was screwed into the wall. I kept forgetting to dismount it whenever I had my tools out, and I was too lazy to get them from the garage for such a menial task. I'm shocked my wife didn't wind up removing it herself, since it bothered her so much. Honey, that's not a real phone. No one's calling, I told Chrissy, ruffling her hair. It took Chrissy a few moments, but she eventually went back to playing as though nothing had happened. It was probably some kind of new game she had learned in school or something. She was 7 and had a bunch of imaginary friends. Maybe she'd gotten into an argument with Princess Pufflecakes and didn't want to take her call. I didn't worry about it too much. It wasn't until the third imaginary call that I started to get concerned. Chrissy and I were having a Ninja Turtles tea party. I was dressed in a pink tutu with Michelangelo's bandana and a crown on my head. Never underestimate what a father would do to put a smile on his kid's face. I got up to get more juice. Chrissy grabbed me by my frilly skirt, looking absolutely terrified. Daddy, don't answer the phone, she pleaded. There was something in her eyes that compelled me to put an end to her weird game. She really looked freaked out. I no longer thought she was playing some sort of reverse psychology Simon Says. If she was making it up, why did she look so genuinely worried? It might be important, sweetheart, don't worry. Daddy will tell those evil telemarketers to leave you alone, I playfully replied as I snuck out of her grasp. I made my way to the kitchen where I picked up the receiver. I turned towards my daughter to give her a reassuring thumbs up, bringing the receiver to my ear. I fully expected to hear silence. Silence, however, was not what I heard. There was static on the line, which surprised me enough that I pulled the phone away for a moment to look at it in disbelief. When I brought it back to my ear, I heard a voice on the other end. 232, Giandiark Road, Fire, 12, whispered a man tonelessly. What the fudgesicles? I answered, perplexed. My wife must have been playing a trick on me. She'd probably convinced Chrissy to help her out so I'd do my job and get rid of the phone. I immediately yanked the cord, and it came flying towards me, hitting me square in the face. I was stunned. It was far too loose to have been in the jack. When I asked my wife about it, she had no idea what I was talking about. The next morning, I absent-mindedly checked my emails while the news played in the background. There was a segment about a fire in an apartment complex. At first, I didn't pay much attention, but then I heard the address. 232, Giandiark Road. 12 residents had perished in the inferno. I nearly dropped my #1 Dash coffee mug on the floor. I didn't know what to do. It was too late to call the police and tell them I'd gotten a creepy warning call about the fire. They'd think I was a nutter or an attention seeker. I took a moment to calm down and rationalize what had happened. It was just a very weird and very scary coincidence. Days later, I was playing Sudoku on the couch when Chrissy walked over, wearing a worried expression on her face. Daddy, don't answer the phone, she whispered, tears in her eyes. Something in the pit of my stomach told me not to go, but I had to know. I made my way to the kitchen and picked up the receiver. This time, a British-sounding woman spoke to me through the disconnected phone. 15 Veneer Street, Fire, 3, she announced. Logically, you'd think I'd go to the police or a fire station to tell them what was going to happen. But here's the thing. I've watched the shows, so I know how these things pan out. You've got an attractive male protagonist who gets a forewarning, which is accurate. I won the Most Handsome Daddy of the Year award, as decided on my very unbiased daughter on Father's Day last year. I even have the trophy to prove it. The protagonist tells the cops about his predictions. Naturally, the cops accuse him of being the perpetrator. They lock him up, but he gets out on some technicality, rushes to the scene of the would-be crime, and saves the day. He becomes a true hero in the eyes of everyone. Close curtains. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm not saying I'm a coward, but look, I've got 2 daughters to care for. I can't go putting myself in dangerous situations where I could realistically wind up dead. I instead bought a disposable phone and used it to call the police. In the past 10 years, there have been a lot of suspicious fires in our city, leading the police to suspect that there's a pyromaniac on the loose. Thus far, he or she has burned down a church, a postal office, an outdoor mall, and a smaller post office inside a mall. I'm going to let you take a wild guess as to what the police officer had to say when I warned him about the potential fire at 15 Veneer Street. If you guessed, he accused you of being the pyromaniac and asked you to turn yourself in. Then you deserve a cookie, because that's exactly what happened. I hung up and tossed the phone in a trash can across town. The next day, I watched as the news crew covered the story. The authorities had sent police officers to investigate what turned out to be an abandoned building. 3 officers had gotten locked in the basement. A fire broke out, and none of them made it out. I felt guilty and powerless. If I hadn't have warned them, the cops wouldn't have been in there, and no one would have died. It was my fault. I couldn't sleep a wink that night, the horrid feeling in my gut eating away at me. The process repeated over the course of the next few months. Chrissy would ask me not to answer the phone. I'd pick it up, and I'd hear a different voice speaking. I'd be given an address, method of death, and the amount of people killed. 89 Oosgrove Avenue, knife, 1. Mrs. Larkin had been stabbed to death during a home invasion. 60 Star Circle, gas leak, 10. The Campbells were enjoying a family reunion and failed to notice the smell of rotten eggs. 79 Jean Jack LaShaw, gun, 3. Maria, Jamie and Alison were shot dead while walking home in the early hours of the morning, and so on and so forth, until I couldn't take it anymore. I remember all their names and faces. I saw them on the news reports. I think about them when I go to bed, knowing there was nothing I could do to save them, but tormented by the fact that I didn't even try. Depression started to creep over me, and I could barely eat or sleep. My wife started to get worried, but I couldn't tell her. I was afraid she'd be disappointed in me for my inaction, so I lied. I told her I was stressed out because of work. A few weeks ago, I'd finally had enough. Unable to keep myself from answering these phantom calls, I decided there was no other option. I stormed into my garage and desperately unscrewed the phone from the wall. As I held the device, I felt a wave of anger rush over me. This thing, this damn telephone, it caused me so much grief. I took it to the driveway and furiously smashed it into the concrete with a hammer until there was nothing left but dust and debris. When it was over, I cleaned the mess. The sensation of freedom was euphoric. My whole body tingled as my heavy burden lifted from my shoulders. That night, I made our favourite family meal and dessert to celebrate. My wife was relieved that I'd gotten over whatever it was that was bothering me, and enjoyed that the eyesore in the kitchen had finally been removed. I have a piece of advice for you. If you have a disconnected landline and haven't gotten around to removing it, please take a lesson from me. Get rid of it immediately, and, above all else, do not pick up the receiver. My life has returned to normal since I got rid of that wretched phone. As I'm typing this, my wife is giving our youngest daughter a bath. I can hear them singing the Bubble Bath song and giggling. Chrissy is in the living room with me. She's playing with this silly pink Disney phone. It's one of those fancy schmancy glittery toys. A pimped out version of the Fisher-Price rotary phone I used to have when I was a kid. Every dial projects a different message from one of the Disney princesses. It's weird. She'd never shown any interest in it before. It's not a real phone. It doesn't even have a cord. But there's that look in her eyes again. She's worried. And I know what she wants to say. No, it's just a toy. It's just a toy. It's just a toy. I'm going to check. I need to know. Shit, I can hear static on the other end. It's a man's voice. He's saying, it's my address. Propane explosion. 4. I need to get my girls out of here. Please don't let it be too late.